John Stossel's video against socialism. Let's do it.
Many people are excited about socialism. They prefer it to capitalism. So it's time for
a new book called The Case Against Socialism.
You'd think you wouldn't have
You would have that. You would have Rand Paul for that book on The Daily Show.
to write a book to make the case.
That's what a lot of people respond. They say, "A case against socialism."
Thank you, Redbeard.
Senator Rand Paul wrote the book because for these people, the case obviously isn't decided. Don't they know socialism's track record?
Hitler's socialism, Stalin's socialism, Mao's socialism.
Yeah, it was Hitler's socialism that was bad. It was real socialism and definitely not anything else. You're right. Hitler's socialism also consisted of killing socialists. It's a weird kind of socialism to just seize control of your party by executing all the socialists and communists, or putting them in concentration camps before you put anyone else in concentration camps. But hey, it kind of doesn't matter because there is already an established bias after years and years of Red Scare propaganda against socialism or anything that comes near socialism. So I'm just going to rely on the lack of information that people already have to make even less educated opinions.
You would think people would have recognized by now.
Paul's chapter titles highlight socialism's problems. It leads to corruption. It's a boot stamping on the human face. Okay,
that's not a fact, and I'm so glad that capitalism does not reward corruption. These are arguments. I'm glad that this guy made an entire book with these arguments. These are really good arguments.
Forever. Because eating your pets is overrated?
Wow, that's really good. I think Rand Paul really owned everybody here, to be honest. We should just pack it up. We should pack it up and go, because Rand Paul unironically made the same argument that the InfoWars girl made on that famous video where she says, "Why do you like Bernie Sanders? But Venezuela, they're eating rats in Venezuela." That is basically the argument against socialism. Where's that video? That video of like 1 gorillion dead, and it's like crazy techno music that plays right after where it says Venezuela. Like, does anyone know exactly the video I'm talking about? We have to watch that because it's basically this book. Nope, that's not it. And also, you are banned for 1 day. Thank you for that. Good job, brave soldier. Okay. Was it worth the ban? Who knows? It's really hard to find the video because like there are a million of them. No, that's not it. That's a cockroach. Mom found the poop sock. Good job, guys. Very good. More dancing cockroaches. Okay. Very tight. I love when my audience I ask for something specific and then every single person is just like, let's not take this seriously. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's time to just send the same link over and over again. Just the same link over and over again, just all the time, nonstop. Is this it? No, this isn't it. No, this is not it at all. Whatever the one that you sent me. No, it's like helicopters flying, and it's like, here's how to win every argument. I have to find this. Where is it? There's just so much propaganda that it's virtually impossible to find any sort of like leftist. If you look at Socialism Venezuela, it's just like the clips are so. I got you, fam. The story of Arslan Ash. Thank you. Fastest gnome in the West. Thank you. You get a 1 hour ban. You get a 1 hour ban.
Here's
real,
the actual
this is it.
distribution of wealth in America.
This is it. This is the book that Rand Paul basically wrote.
Here's
This was the meme. It's ruined now,
distribution of
but
wealth in America. The poorest Americans don't even register. They're down to pocket change.
Venezuela.
yep, that is exactly what I was looking for. That is worth it. It's such a good clip. Thank you so much for sending that to me. That was the video that I was looking for. It's a great video. Anyway, let's keep going.
Think that when your economy gets to the point where people are eating their pets, people might have second thoughts about what type of economic system they've chosen.
The Eating Your Pets chapter points out that Venezuelans have lost weight because they cannot find food.
Contrast that with dear leader, with Maduro, who's probably gained 50 pounds.
We don't know that the dictator gained 50 pounds, but he does eat on TV while his people starve.
It really sums up socialism. There's still a well-fed top 1%. They just happen to be the government or those who are cronies or friends of the government.
No Trump, no wall, no USA.
American socialists say, we won't be like that.
When I talk about democratic socialism, I'm not looking at Venezuela. I'm not looking at Cuba. I'm looking at countries like Denmark and Sweden.
They all wind up saying, but the kinder, gentler socialism that we want is Scandinavia.
So I just need to point out something here, that if you wrote an entire book and one whole chapter of your book can be easily explained with like a really terrible political cartoon, then you probably shouldn't have written that book at all. I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words, certainly, but if your entire chapter is just basically this photo, you should at the very least be embarrassed to go on a book tour and talk to other people about how great your book is. You should just stay at home where you are, comfortably away from your neighbor who might beat
so my
your
dear
butt.
Leader Hassan B will continue to eat on stream while I starve.
Just happen to be the.
I talk about them looking at countries like Denmark and Sweden.
They all wind up saying, but the kinder, gentler socialism that we want is Scandinavia. That's the kind of democratic socialism in Scandinavia. So we do a big chunk of the book in there talking about Scandinavia.
Paul's book is different from other politicians' books. Paul did actual research.
It's not true that the Scandinavian countries are socialist.
Well, Scandinavia tried socialist policies years ago. They then turned away from socialism. They privatized industries and repealed regulations.
Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy.
Denmark's prime minister even came to America and refuted the socialists' claims, pointing out Denmark is now
a successful market economy with much freedom to pursue your dreams and live your life.
In fact, when experts rank economic freedom, Scandinavian countries rank near the top.
I wonder why this is not like an incredible advocacy for social democracy. This is just basically making the argument for social democracies for us. We don't even need to make like any sort of attempt to say, hey, we need a transitional social democracy and then maybe a socialist phase and then potentially something different. This argument basically shows that social democracies work and that there is economic freedom in those social democracies, and that the United States could potentially have the same tax rate that these nations have, same marginal tax rate these nations have. But then, oh, no, that's socialism. So it's really weird that they're both making an argument for social democracy while also claiming that we cannot make those strides towards a social democracy here in America.
Private property, private stock exchange. We learned that actually Bernie is too much of a socialist for Scandinavia.
Scandinavia did keep some socialist policies, like government-run healthcare. The media say that brings huge benefits. It's why Swedes live longer. But
this is the trick of statistics. You can say, oh, well, the Swedes live longer and they have socialized medicine. And yet, if you look hard at the statistics, it started way before socialized medicine.
60 years ago, Swedes already lived longer.
If you have sauna, you live longer.
Likewise, the socialist welfare state didn't reduce poverty. Scandinavia's culture.
Okay. I'm sorry, but I mean, no one is this stupid, right?
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father, the
Like,
devil.
no one is actually this stupid, right? I don't want to believe that there are people out there who are like, oh, Poggies, I had no idea that Swedish people already lived longer. So that must completely destroy the argument that, like, nations with socialized medicine have better healthcare outcomes overall. Like, it totally destroys that argument now because Swedes already lived longer even before socialized medicine. The sauna part is like a joke, I think. But I mean, that's absolutely, that's like believing in unicorns, or I don't know. You really have to be like, what about all these other countries that also have better healthcare outcomes? And by the way, healthcare outcomes is entirely different than life expectancy too. Like life expectancy is determined by a multitude of different factors. Okay, your diet, like your culture does actually play a role in your life expectancy. People will say culture is just a substitute for a racist dog whistle or whatever. No, it does. Or, I mean, if you want to apply a materialist analysis to this, like everything else, you can look at the agricultural production in your country and how much money and power that agricultural production might have. For example, in America, you have the corn lobby that's overwhelmingly powerful. So they end up using high fructose corn syrup as a substitute for regular sugar. Instead of sugar cane, you have a lot of foods that has high fructose corn syrup in it. That's the corn lobby's doing. So there is definitely a materialist and non-cultural example of how like specific commodity and agricultural production could impact a country's culture and impact the country's overall health. But anyway, as I was saying, offering people healthcare free at cost free at the point of entry is good, and virtually every study demonstrably shows this. So I don't know how you could just say, well, the Swedes lived longer even before that, so I guess owned epically. Wow, that was good.
Sure did.
For me, it's really, really important to work.
Swedes tend to work hard. Paul tells a story about Nobel Prize winning economist Milton Friedman.
The Swedish economist comes up to him and he says, well, you know, in Sweden we have no poverty, and Friedman responds and he says, well, yeah, in America we have no poverty among Swedish Americans.
Today, Swedes in America have a much higher standard of living than Swedes in Sweden. Danish Americans too. Socialism simply does not create.
This is a meme, right? This entire book is basically just like bad arguments Like how to do bad arguments that are easily dismissed. Okay. The reason why Swedish people that come to America have a better life or better financial situation than Swedish people across the board in Sweden is because poor people can't come to America. Okay? You have to have some sort of wealth already to be able to travel freely to a country like the United States of America, which wants to which is not necessarily open to free travel. Okay, no matter what country you're coming from. It's really psychotic to assume that like this is an indication of anything but the fact that yes, more wealthier Swedes are coming to America, and compared to the wealthier Swedes that are coming to America, the entirety of the Swedish economy is not doing as well. So shocking that they would point this out as though it's an indication of anything. Yeah, it's like saying Nigerian Americans are much happier and much wealthier and have a higher level of education than Nigerians in Nigeria. Yeah, no, I know. That's not a condemnation of anything. It just means that wealthier and more educated Nigerians that are beneficiaries of intergenerational wealth, have the capacity to come to America. I know this because I'm actually one of those foreigners who comes from an affluent enough background to be able to have American citizenship and live here. By the way.
Create that magic world of prosperity plus equality that today's socialists suggest. But the biggest case against it is that it crushes freedom. Socialists get elected by promising fairness and equality.
The only way you can enforce those things is you have to have an equality police or a fairness police, and ultimately they show up with truncheons,
tanks, tear gas, and riot police.
Why do...
This was openly shown to be not Venezuelan protesters, but a Guaido protester that had taken over the tank. The New York Times openly admitted this a week later, a week after they had already done the coverage, and lied and said that the Venezuelan government was like trying to kill protesters. Just both articles were covered on the New York Times, just for the record. If you want, you know what? Let's just find it. But we already know from this week that the New York Times doesn't really have a great metric of success for upholding journalistic standards here. So, Guaido supporters. Where is it? Guaido officials rally. Use your LA Public Library subscription to access New York Times for free. I can't. Anyway, do you want a Nigerian connect? Sure. I don't know what that means. Alabama Times reported that as well. I can't click on any of these articles. This is so annoying. Venezuela news: protesters mowed by armored truck. It's unclear if the death was armored National Guard vehicles have been seen driving through the protest. Broadcast was protesters are taking to the street. The opposition in the street after opposition leader Guaido has international support from the United States. Posted a video online calling the final phase of his plan to oust the president. Where is it? Okay, this article doesn't show. Anyway, originally they said that this was this video was Maduro's military running over people, and then it came out that it was actually Guaido supporters that had taken over. I found it. What is this? Use a browser script to bypass. I don't know how to. Wait, how do you get over paywalls? Okay, anyway, let's just keep going.
Boot stamping on your face forever.
If you want complete socialism, you have to take the property from people.
Expropiese, expropiese.
Here's Hugo Chavez doing that.
Expropiese, señor alcalde. Expropiese.
The best kind of...
Well, people are clapping, so it seems to be... People are clapping. It seems to be successful, or at the very least popular for the beneficiaries or the lower classes of workers that have benefited greatly from that expropriation. So yeah.
Socialist leader ends up having to be ruthless because you can't be a kinder, gentler socialist leader and get the property.
So many choices!
By contrast, capitalism largely lets individuals make our own choices.
It's a direct democracy every day.
I love this argument. 6 mega corporations own virtually every food commodity that you can purchase inside of these convenience stores. Okay? 6 mega corporations own almost every commodity you can purchase inside of our grocery stores. Okay? Like, you might have cheap commodity production under capitalism, and we do, largely as a consequence of third world exploitation. But things with inelastic demand that are an absolute necessity for survival, like, or upward social mobility, or just a better quality of life in general, like higher education, or, drumroll, healthcare. Those things are incredibly expensive. Okay? Being able to buy a better TV year over year does not necessarily create a direct democracy. It doesn't create a democratic process at all. So it's really silly to make this argument. I know that under a socialist or under current existing socialist countries, I guess, production is very limited, and they don't create a fallacy, or not a fallacy, a mirage of choice, rather. But that doesn't change the reality that we barely have different commodity producers here in the United States. So, yeah.
You vote either for Walmart or you vote for Target. You vote with your feet, with your wallet, and the people who succeed are the people who get the most votes, which are dollars. And as long
unless you live in a food desert, in which case you can't vote. That's what we call a no voting situation, in which you're voting between McDonald's heart disease or Burger King heart disease.
There's no coercion. It seems to me that that would be the most just way of distributing a nation's economy.
At your service.
It's good that Senator Paul's around to tell his fellow politicians the truth about socialism.
It doesn't work. It's a recipe for disaster. Look what...
Why did he vote for the tax cuts? Like, how can he just show this mountain of debt, balanced budget thing, and then vote to increase our deficit by close to $2 trillion exclusively to give corporations and the wealthy tax cuts?
What happens as we approach socialism around the world? It's a history of famine and genocide.
Our white families are under attack. What do we do?
Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, Castro, Chavez, Maduro. It doesn't work.
Hope you enjoyed this.
That was good. Epically owned. All right, again, let's run that back, boys.
Here's the actual distribution of wealth.
Pretty much what he just said.
The poorest Americans don't even register. They're down to pocket change.
Venezuela.
the worst part.